Hey you all, welcome back, and today we are talking about the economic system of capitalism and the role it's played here in America and across the world. Most economies run on a form of capitalism or socialism and capitalism combined. Nothing really is truly just capitalism. Most of our economic systems around the world are a hybrid of a few different ones. But this video, we're really going to be hanging on and talking about the pros and cons of the capitalist system and where it could go if things were better and where it is now currently in America and its inequalities that it throws upon the working class. So free market capitalism sounds like a good thing, right? Because it's a free market. And we like the idea of having freedom of choice. I think this is something that's very important. And I do believe that if you want to become a YouTuber, if you want to become a flower shop owner, or you want to become a, person who makes cars, you have the right to sell them. You have the right to become wealthy from that. And what the government should be doing is just making sure that you treat your employees right and you don't destroy the environment. So I think free market capitalism is really good in the sense that it gives you a lot of options, and theoretically it should be using competition and collaboration to drive down prices. You should have lots of options, and free market capitalism tends to meet the law of supply and demand pretty well, right? If the market wants more of something, generally that information gets back to the producer in a pretty quick manner. It's like, hey, we're running out of stock. We need to make more strawberries, or we need to make more cars, or whatever the product is. So capitalism handles supply and demand really well. And a free market means you can become whatever you want, right? This is kind of what America runs on, right? The American dream. Become whoever you want to be. Build a business and become the most amazing, most, rich person ever. The issue with America's free market capitalism is it's highly unregulated in areas where it should be. We see massive companies here in America monopolizing and buying out entire other sectors, completely eliminating any chance of competition, right? A free market is supposed to have competition. This is what's supposed to drive down prices, but it's not. You look at the food industry, and 10 companies almost own all the food brands. How is there any competition when you can set all the prices to whatever you want? So capitalism, in theory, competition should be a good thing, and I think it is in certain areas. I think it can inspire you to do better. I know for me, my sister Leah started working out when I was like around 15 or 14, and they started getting in really good shape, and I'm like, damn, I need to get in good shape. Like, I don't know, there was some competition in me and a sibling rivalry. I was like, I gotta get in good shape too. I can't be not in shape. And that started me on my workout journey. And now me staying in shape has to do with self-love and how I love myself. But it did kind of start with a little bit of competition. So competition can drive us to do really good things. And I think it can drive us to make a better society and do better stuff. It can also drive us to be mean and competitive in certain areas where I think we could be more collaborative. But I think also our capitalist system drives collaboration. You see the startup culture. You see companies that are trying to become something or build themselves up. There's a lot of collaboration in those early days about building certain products, and there's ideas going around. It's a really creative atmosphere, and this is something that I do think capitalism does well. But again, our current system, especially with these mega corporations, this oligarchy that kind of runs America, because we're really a corporate run government. Large corporations lobby a ton of our politicians, and that just keeps those large corporations pretty much untouchable. And in a real capitalist market, they should be touchable. They should be able to be competed with. But, when an oil company can lobby out and bribe government officials, well, guess what? No nuclear energy is getting built because they can pay off the government official who could approve a nuclear project. They can pay off the government official who can approve a solar farm. They can pay off the government official who can approve a wind farm. And, oil companies will even send in people to sow dissent amongst communities, whether it's, wind farms will cause a lot of noise, or, a nuclear plant could melt down, which it could, but nuclear meltdowns have killed less people than any of the coal industry's pollution has ever. I actually made a video back on this talking about green energy. I believe the combined death toll of nuclear power plants killing people is around the 50s or 60s. Of just 50 or 60 people, right? It was Chernobyl and the meltdown that happened in Japan back in 2011. the issue here is we see large corporations meddling in government affairs and vice versa. The government also meddling in affairs in certain ways to benefit themselves with large corporations. So, little recap. The pros, you have this ability to be whatever you want. The con is our current government system here in America uses this system to benefit itself. And large corporations use the government to also benefit themselves. It's a kind of just, I guess, circle jerk of money going to the same amount of people and not really getting distributed. And this is a problem with a lot of systems, but capitalism tends to have this problem, and this amount of wealth that is being stored up to the top 1% is becoming obscene. Back in the 1950s, there wasn't much of a difference in life quality between the guy who made $50,000 and the guy who made $200,000. Your quality of life was really, really good. But that changed with trickle-down economics and many other things happening throughout our economic system. Our capitalism here in America is mainly not so much true capitalism. We have a corporate government that is benefiting only a few companies, and while new companies do show up, by the time they get big, a bigger company will end up buying them up. Monopolies are a huge issue here in America, and this is another problem that comes from capitalism, is the idea of monopolies. People, because they want to compete, because capitalism is built on this idea that, hey, people's self-interest will serve other people's self-interest because they want to make money, which means they'll make a product for someone, and everyone making these products will compete with each other, which will keep the prices low, which again, theoretically sounds good. Well, it's not working because people are so greedy and want so much money and want so much wealth that they are willing to take it. And they are willing to just completely obliterate other businesses by either buying them out or putting them out of business. And these monopolies are really, really bad. As much as I love that Disney owns Marvel and Fox so that I can see the X-Men and Spider-Man and, the Avengers all on the same screen. That's so cool. I'm like, whoa, that's an awesome creative thing. The fact that Disney owns Lucasfilm, Marvel, Fox, they own Hulu, I believe they own ABC, and some of ESPN, they are a monopoly. They own way too much, and there's no competition, right? They're getting all this money from their different streaming services, and you're like, oh, well, I have Hulu, they're competing against Disney. No, they're not. They are Disney. And while you do still have like HBO and Peacock and these other programs that might either be cheaper or more expensive, there's a lot less competition because large behemoths like Disney own a huge majority of the market, which shouldn't be allowed. Monopolies get broken up, right? This happened back in the day with the oil barons, but it took some time. And maybe here in America, that will also happen. But the issue is we also have a thing called government lobbying, which means corporations can make donations and lobby politicians to basically do their bidding. And when you're getting paid $20 million, not passing a bill for solar energy or not passing a bill to put rebates on electric cars suddenly is a lot easier to do because guess what? Now you're $20 million richer because you got paid off by some, large oil corporation like Exxon or Shell. This is horrible and it's actually making our system worse. It's actually making progress not happen. See, the issue with capitalism is it can get so focused on greed and making money that actually no progress is made. And again, more wealth gets to go towards the 1%. And I think this is really the biggest flaw with our current form of capitalism here in America. So again, one thing that does well, supply and demand, it meets it pretty good. And the idea that a theoretical free market, competition and collaboration should make things cheaper, should. But here in America, it actually doesn't because there is no competition. Everyone is owned by one of the big 20 or so companies, right? That isn't a free market. That is an oligarchy of very powerful corporations who basically get to decide how the world runs. This is dangerous because these corporations want to make more money. They want to become super wealthy. They want to become rich for no reason. Like they are beyond wealthy. These CEOs have more than enough. And their employees have not enough to even live on. Wealth inequality in America is insane, and a basic job won't get you a home anymore. It won't even get you a condo. Many people are working 2 jobs, right? It's sad to see. At least it won't get you those things in a city or urban area, or if it will take you a lot longer. So what we're seeing in America is extreme inequality and extreme wealth just continually going towards the 1%, because all the legislation that is being passed is being paid for by the rich people to make themselves richer. It's a very uneven system, and I think capitalism can lend itself to this if unchecked and unregulated, and if the government ends up working with bad corporations, it ends up making the government and the economy worse, because it's not a free economy, it's not a free market. It's just a bunch of rich people handing each other money and taking more and more money from the middle class and the poor. So how do we fix this system? Well, here's a few things that I would do if I had the power to do so. Lobbying would be made illegal. Companies should not be able to lobby or bribe the government to do their will. We see this in the FDA. The FDA actually gets a ton of funding from companies like Pepsi and Coca-Cola. So what's crazy is the FDA is going to be like, hey, we're the Food and Drug Administration, and we're supposed to tell you what's healthy and not healthy. When the biggest producers of sugar and bad food for you, like really bad products for you, is like, hey, we're funding your research in the billions of dollars. So, say that Coca-Cola is healthy, because if you don't, we will cut your funding. That needs to go. So lobbying and government donations coming from corporations, massive corporations, needs to stop. It is a conflict of interest, whether people think it is or not. It is an absolute conflict of interest, and it is corrupting our current economic system. The next thing is the government should step in and regulate companies on how they treat their employees. We need better workers' rights. We need to have better protection for our workers. We need to have higher pay and more pay time off. European countries like Norway, Sweden, and Denmark do a great job of doing this. Even Germany does a good job of doing this as well, and they're considered they have less of the social programs, at least from what I've heard, than Norway, Sweden, and Denmark, and their people are still getting, at least a month off of paid time off. In Iceland, maternity leave is like 6 months or almost 9 months. Like, you get paid maternity leave because the companies actually care for you there, and the government makes sure that legislation is in place. So America needs to come to a better work-life balance, and the government should help enforce that. And make sure that companies are treating their employees right. That's what government's meant to do. It should protect the interest of its people, not just its billionaires and millionaires. The next thing is the government should also regulate how companies treat the environment. BP, Shell, Exxon, Conoco, Phillips, all of them need to be phased out. Fossil fuels, oil, and coal no longer need to be running our country. We have nuclear energy, we have solar, and we have wind, and we could rechange our infrastructure to make those things run our entire grid. It is possible, it is doable. Would it cost a lot of money? Yes, but force these companies to change to renewable energy instead of destroying our planet and destroying lives. Because even if you don't believe in climate change, right? And I do believe in climate change, but still, coal and the emissions from coal and all these power plants and all the pollution it causes literally takes years off your life. And if you're a person who works in coal mines or works at these factories, you're literally getting so many pollutants and toxins on your body. While at a nuclear plant, you are so safe. It's actually one of the safest places to be from radiation, which is crazy. Like, you get more radiation eating a banana than you do at a safe, regulated nuclear plant. And America has a lot of safety precautions around nuclear plants because we've seen what failures look like. And for the most part, I feel very safe that nuclear energy could power our entire grid just fine. And it's way less on the waste than coal and oil is. So make companies go to green. Force it. That's what the government is supposed to do if it wants to better the lives of the people. So force companies to have green standards. And this is from the restaurant to the large corporation. Everyone has to follow better standards. Make life better for everyone and have better plans. The government should be doing that, and that's what it should be regulating. So we would have that going for us as well. Next, this is more of a government thing. Our current capitalist society and the way our government runs things doesn't offer a lot of safety nets for people. Here in America, and this is one of my issues with capitalism, is everything is treated as a market. Maybe things that shouldn't be, like the medical industry. The medical industry is treated as a market, and here in America, insurance and drugs are expensive. life-saving things that could be helping you could cost you an arm and a leg. Literally, it costs so much, and our healthcare system is broken. This is something that could maybe even be transferred to the government if the government could run it correctly, or we must have to find a better way to run our medical system. Again, it's like 10 companies running all the pharmaceuticals in the world, and they can charge whatever they want for life-saving drugs. Whether that is a cancer medication that literally they charge $300,000 for. $300,000 to cure someone's cancer or to help cure it. That is ridiculous, and it is a crime. Same with insulin. Now, insulin, recently we saw a turnaround with this. Eli Lilly company here in America actually lowered the price of insulin to something way more affordable. But at one point, they raised insulin to the price of $600 without insurance. $600. That greed is insurmountable. Many of these vaccines are getting produced for pennies, and they're willing to charge the American consumer and people who need this medicine $600. That is the greed that needs to be curtailed by the government. Those are the things the government should be stopping, and would be under a system that I would be running once I'm in a position to do so. So I would change that. Medical corporations would not have the ability to do that. Insurance companies and the whole medical industry should be reformed completely, because under our current government system and our economic system, it doesn't work. It doesn't work, and it is hurting many Americans and putting stress on a lot of people's lives. So we would get rid of the markets that shouldn't be markets. Healthcare and life and death care shouldn't be turned into a market. It shouldn't be something to make money off of. Those are things that happen to us that we can't even control. And we're gonna make people pay hundreds of thousands of dollars or tens of thousands of dollars when it comes to burying their dead, or hundreds of thousands when it comes to, getting a treatment that's life-saving. That's wrong. It's wrong morally to me. Our main problem with any of the economic systems, capitalism, socialism, or communism, is greed. Now, I do think capitalism lends itself to greed a lot more, but it spreads the greed out amongst more people, right? So, unlike a socialist system where the government might have all the power but is providing for its people, right? If the government has the best interests of the people in mind in a socialist system, and the people are running their co-ops and the businesses well and own the means of production, things could probably be okay. But if they don't have the best in mind for their people, well, it can be really bad. Here in America, we have a capitalist system, obviously. And it should be that the wealth and all these decisions should be spread out amongst the people much more democratically, much more freely. But they aren't. A lot of these decisions and a lot of things that get passed here are up to about 10 or 20 companies and a few representatives. We don't really have a democracy in America. We have a republic, and we have a bunch of corporations paying for their bills and their will to be passed. So that's why minimum wage and workers' rights have such a hard time taking a stand here in America, because the CEOs can pay off the government officials who can make those things happen. And that is the issue I think I have with capitalism, is since everything is treated as a market, even laws are treated as a market. And that is very dangerous. The government should be here to enforce laws and to protect the rights of its citizens. And in America, it has a hard time doing that when it is so intricately tied with corporations and capitalism. If our government separated itself from the economic system just a little more and was here as a regulatory entity, it would be way, way better. But it's not a regulatory entity. It is actively participating in our economic system in a way that benefits itself, and it benefits the corporations that are benefiting them. Again, it's a circle jerk of a bunch of rich companies and politicians passing each other money and taking it from the poor. So another thing under capitalism and free markets is the idea of land ownership, right? Real property or real estate. I do believe you should have the right to own your own land and build whatever you want on it. Again, if it falls within the regulations of making sure it's not hurting the environment and it's not putting other people at a disadvantage, right? You shouldn't be building a house or a castle or whatever if you're doing it illegally and using labor. Again, if you're using bad business practices to build your home, or not using the correct safety regulations, or not keeping it green to the environment, that's where the government should step in to regulate, or you should have your local government systems regulating. I think you should have the freedom to build your own property, build the house of your dreams. And I also think that we also should have more safety nets. Our current government doesn't give Americans that many safety nets. I do think basic housing should be a human right, I'm not talking about giving people a 8,000 square foot home or anything massive. I'm saying, hey, let's say you get out of the foster care system and you're young and you don't have anyone to go to. Maybe your life was super hard. You should be able to have a voucher of some sort or some sort of resource to go to a public housing place where you get a 800 square foot studio. They help you find a job. You get counseling and mental health help that you need if you have any issues. And you can live there as long as you need to until you want to do something else, right? And this is, I think, also where American education needs to change. Education should not be expensive. I think it should be free. And I think a lot of people get confused. They're like, oh my goodness, these ideas. If you're on the far right, you're like, oh my goodness, this is socialist. Oh my God, it's horrible. I don't think so. I really don't think it is. I think it's just better social programs for people. We should have more safety nets. I think basic housing should be a human right. I think that you should be able to, if you need to, move to a new city and get a apartment in a basic housing unit or public housing unit that's costing you maybe $100 a month or whatever. It should not be costing you, a third of your paycheck or more, or half of your paycheck. It should be very affordable, because guess what? Sometimes you have a rough start of life. Some people are very privileged. I know that I grew up in a family that was able to have money. I know that my family and the color of my skin and the race I was born into gave me benefits over other people. Some people don't have that. Some people have had hard lives, have had racism towards them, have had parents who abused them, and they should not be punished because they had, a rough start. And there should be systems in place for those people. And let's say you fall from glory. Let's say you go from millionaire to destitute. You shouldn't be homeless, in my opinion. You should be able to go to some kind of public housing or government housing that keeps you safe until you get back on your feet. I do think that basic needs should be met, but I also think we should keep real property and the ability to build the home of your dreams. I think freedom is important. I think freedom of speech is important. I think the freedom to build the business you want is important. And I think the freedom to read whatever book you want is important. You know how I talk about book bans and how I think that's scary. So I do think under a capitalist system, we could have great things if the government regulated things correctly, ensured workers' rights, ensured that we weren't destroying the environment, and protected its citizens more. But the current system we have, our government protects itself and the interest of a few multi-billion and trillion-dollar companies. And this is what needs to change. So, is the capitalist system perfect? No. Is it completely at fault for all the inequality and problems? No. That would be our government and the immense greed that is pushed. But we need to come up with new ideas. Maybe it's not even capitalism. Maybe it's not socialism. Maybe it's a mix of both. But I want to see a freer world where we can all collaborate and be with each other, where the success of one person does not mean the destitution of another, where basic human rights are being met, where that the starting place for all civilians is equal. We should be able to build a better system. We should be able to give people a good starting block, because everyone deserves an equal starting place. And if we are truly the land of the free, then we need to reassess what our freedom looks like, because this current system we're in is way harder than it needs to be. And I'm not saying life isn't hard, it always is, but the systems that humans have made around life have made it even harder. We need a government that cares for us, and we need an economic system that is better regulated to benefit everybody. So, tell me your thoughts. I love you all, and I cannot wait to talk to you more about other economic systems and what I think about socialism. Is something I've also been studying, and I love a lot of things about it, but I also do not like the idea of how centralized it can be with its power when it comes to government, because generally, even here in America, our government always isn't looking out for the best interest of the people. It's usually looking out for the best interest of the people in power, which again is billionaires and government politicians. What we need is change, and I believe together we can change it, and we have to come up with ideas, we have to talk, we have to agree, we have to disagree, and build a better world together. I love you all. Thank you so much for watching. This is Gabriel. Peace.